Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions, where we are critical but not cynical of the music we listen to. I'm Bryan, I'm your host, and we're going to continue on with this week's theme of music inspired by art, looking at a track from Explosions in the Sky that was inspired by either the novel or the film The Moon is Down. Which a quick synopsis of that is there's a small coastal town with a mine nearby, and an invading force comes over and settles there. And the people, they fight back. They get overtaken for a while, but eventually there is a murder. One of the miners attacks one of the captains of the invading forces and is executed for this crime. And so the townspeople fight back with a slow guerrilla style combat style. Whenever soldiers get drunk or whatever, they end up dead and stuff like that. Any of the machinery needed for the coal mine is uh, what is it called? Sabotaged, right? So that work is difficult to do. And it ends with the mayor being held hostage by the invading colonel and says, "Y'all aren't going to attack anymore, or your mayor dies." And the mayor says, "I'm already dead. You can't take freedom away. And you can go ahead and kill me if you want." And I believe the mayor does get executed there at the end, and that's sort of the end of the story. So, yeah, that's just a quick synopsis there, and hopefully it will give us some insight into Explosions in the Skies song, also titled The Moon is Down. Let's dive into this and see what they're bringing to the table. Yeah, so this is straight up small village peaceful music as far as I'm concerned. Similar music has been utilized in several films and video games, TV series of just quiet villages. It also kind of evokes the stillness of dawn. At least I'm kind of getting that. Especially as more and more layers come in, kind of shows like people waking up and getting to their duties. Kind of has like a Morning Bells vibe going on with that left pan sounds. Now we've got a march going. Pretty strong symbolism of military, especially an invading, occupying force. I like the juxtaposition here as well. We still have some of that bright, cheerful village music with that marching snare idea. love the dynamic qualities, the really strong crescendo and decrescendo there. Yeah, just this little bit of ebb and flow going on. Rising tension and relaxing moments. Increased tension in the harmonic area. I don't think we've had that before. Really interesting. We're not in mostly calm music with punctuations of the march. Well, up until just now, the march was the standard and we had punctuations of the calm. The other thing I can think, this would be like biding the time. But there's still rising tension. Our snare continues to increase in volume. I'm not gonna. The metaphor is starting to get lost on me, even if I work outside of the framework of the novella. Huh. If I hadn't of looked up the reference material or what inspired the track, I think I'd be fairly lost here. Now that I have looked up the influence, I'm still fairly lost here, which is unusual for Explosions in the Sky. I'm not a real big post rock fan, and Explosions in the Sky is not exactly an exception to that. However, they have really impacted me with a few of the songs I've listened to from them. They have a typically a really strong sense of storytelling through emotional soundscape. They don't really do much with melody, which makes sense. They're post rock. It's about crafting atmospheres. That's what they really do a good job at, and the ways that they move between atmospheres in a way to take the listener through a story, on a journey, to tell a story through these atmospheres. And I kind of get some ideas here, but I don't know what the ending is saying at all. And I also feel like, as with most Explosions in the Sky, the ending is the ending is it's the meat of the song. Well, that's not the right way to. It's the punch. It's the peak. It's the part that's supposed to be the most emotional. It's supposed to have the most resonance. Everything else leads up to it. It's the payoff for your patience throughout the rest of the track. And I felt the opposite with the ending. It seemed to undercut everything I understood about the track. Let's get into the music, and hopefully I can explain myself about this. There's two sides to this song. There is the peaceful element. We have our bells and our acoustic guitar, maybe. Maybe it's just a clean guitar, a clean electric. Um, it is right pan. The bells are typically left pan. There's a couple of other ornamental ideas that show up in here as well, but for the most part, there's also this. There's like this pulse, just a single note that kind of hits every quarter note, every beat. It is playing quarter notes. And it all kind of creates a very warm, welcoming, friendly, upbeat, kind of chill, hillside mountain kind of vibe, right? Small village kind of thing going on. And it does this exceptionally. I picked up on it immediately, and we were only like two of the layers in. When we keep adding more and more layers, I can't help but hear this kind of idea, this mountainside village. Uh, kind of feeling going on where it's very close knit. There's not very many people there. Most of them have their own roles in the town. You don't really have two doctors, you have one, right? And you have the farming family, and if they don't keep up with the crops, then the whole village doesn't eat. That kind of vibe where everybody's reliant on everyone else. it perfectly encapsulates that feeling, not just of the tight knit village where there would be a morning bell to wake everyone up for their daily tasks, but also just the placement and presence of it. I keep mentioning hillside. I picture green hills everywhere. Though the novel suggests, or does it explicitly states, they're a coastal village or city or whatever it was. I'm also picturing something a bit older because they are a coastal town with a coal mine nearby, which is why they were occupied for their resource there. Uh, the type of village I'm thinking of is a lot older than what would be uh, probably late 1800s, early 1900s, I'm thinking. I wonder. Let me pull this up real quick. Yeah, it was written in 1942, but it doesn't seem to give a time frame for when the story takes place. But either way, like I said, I think the music does a good job at showcasing that this is a peaceful village. They don't have an army, they don't have even a militia. They are people who exist in their village. They help out the people in their village. They do their jobs. They go home, they cook, they eat, and they go to bed. And, that's their life. They're not built for combat. And I love how when the percussion finally comes in, where I would kind of hope for some fun percussive instruments, not necessarily a drum kit in this specific case, probably something a little folkier to augment what's going on here and to really drive home this theme they have going. The percussion is something else entirely. It is a bass and snare. It sounds to me like a bass kick. I'm guessing it's a drum kit, but the idea is that it's supposed to evoke the imagery of a marching snare and a marching bass. Two people in an army of some sort, and marching in, right? Not to mention the fact that the snare line, if I remember correctly, slowly fades into the mix of this peaceful village vibe. Almost as if they gradually come in from offshore, that kind of idea, and they begin to implant themselves in the middle of this music. Not to, and we can't even forget about the fact that the drums are very prominent. They are way too loud. They overpower quite a bit, which I think was done on purpose to show how the occupying force becomes so ingrained into this peaceful village, uh, and they can't be forgotten. They can't be ignored. They are loud and in charge, kind of vibe. Um, and if that's what they were going for, that's excellent. If not, that's fine as well. I mean, it still kind of works. It's not like it's too loud. It's just too loud. Accompanying this, we have a warning siren. It's just like this one tone that kind of slides into a note a little above it and slides back down and just kind of hovers there. It's not really playing anything melodic. It's very ornamental in a atmospheric kind of way. Storytelling more so than providing musical component. And this was the part where I really felt the song was reaching its strengths. We have these two opposing sides, this nice village vibe and then this snare. And honestly, the snare is the only instrument I feel that really doesn't fit. Everything else works well. So if I am to apply this to the tail, the occupying force is represented by a snare drum. That's it. It feels a little underwhelming to me, but it works because of this one idea: volume. Volume is so important in this track. After this part, we begin to see these rising and falling notions where we will continue to have a quiet snare drum. I think even the snare drum might even be absent in a few of these valleys. And we just have this nice, peaceful collection of instruments doing their thing. Very beautiful. And then it rises up into a large, very loud part. The snare is very loud. The instruments are very loud. And then it falls back down quickly. And then we're in a longer section of this quiet. And we have this rising and falling action where our peaks are much shorter than our valleys. Not too long after this, we flip the script and we are in the peaks for much longer. We are at the high points for a few bars. We come down to a quiet one for a bar and come back up to the loud part for a few more bars. We'll sit up here for a little bit and then we'll come back down and we'll come back up again. And it is the exact inverse of where we were at. Again, looking at this through the lens of the novel, this could be the conflict between the village people beginning to take on militaristic means and fighting back against the occupying force, where at the beginning they might be a bit more subservient because they don't have combat training. They don't have a militia. They don't have any way to fight back. So the loud moments could be seen as clash or conflict, and it happens less frequently because it is quickly snuffed out. Whereas as time goes on, they might become more affluent in combat, and the conflict, the tension between the two groups of people is at an all time high and is more frequent than the peaceful downtime. And I say peaceful, it's not really peaceful for those being occupied, for those who have lost their town, but there isn't explicit conflict. Let me put it that way. Now, up to this point, I really enjoyed the storytelling of the song. We were probably about 5 minutes in, about halfway through the song, and we had honestly seen one idea. We have the village theme and we have the marching snare. And that's kind of it. And they are telling a story utilizing just these two ideas. It's actually really well done, especially when you look at how the village theme gets modified as time goes on by changing layers. Sometimes we just pull out instruments, sometimes we get to add more and more, like the beginning when we got to continuously add layers and increase just like the brightness and interconnectivity of this entire theme. And then as the marching snare comes in, we have ideas pulled out and out. There is a lack of cohesion between our people again. Or there's a lack of connection between our villagers. Not again, just there's a lack of connection there. They're having a more difficult time working together to craft their theme song again. Or more accurately to the story, they're having a difficult time figuring out how to work together to achieve the means of reaching freedom again now that they're being occupied. And it's just really well done. We have one concept that is explored with dynamic qualities of layering and volume, as well as not just volume as a whole, but also volume within, looking at individual elements like the snare drum, and telling a story through the dynamic components rather than the melodic components. There are no changes in chord progressions to achieve different atmospheres or emotions. There isn't a change in melody. There isn't a change in frequency of attacks. We don't ever change the song note wise. We just change the way it feels. It's really impressive how much of The Moon is Down gets represented in this first 5 minutes, or at least how much I can tie between the two, thematically speaking, based on just subtle ideas like this. I have to give them credit for that. They do a fantastic job at turning themes and emotions into music, and I cannot take that away from them. They continue to impress me every time I listen to them on that front. But after this 5-6 minute mark, things start to wane for me. The song continues to explore these same exact themes. Small variation, mostly looking at dynamic changes. There are no atmospheric changes, emotional changes, chord progression changes. Nothing really is altered in the music. The notes, I should say. But we continue to look at dynamic changes between volume, layers, and just the way that the snare works against the rest of the music. But unfortunately for me, it just feels like a repeat of concepts, whereas before there was a bit of an evolution. This just continues on in the same vein. Not to mention, I think my biggest issue is that the snare changes up. And I'm real curious about this one. There is a very rigid Western snare march that's utilized for 70% of this track. It is very indicative of marches in general, and marches tend to evoke, at least for me, military. Until 3 minutes to go, and the drummer decides that the intensity of the drums needs to change not just in volume, but also in rhythm. And we begin to put more and more odd accents into it, changing it up from a military snare, or sorry, a marching snare idea to a snare-based rock concept. And it begins to lose its identity as the oppressor. It takes on a brand new identity that isn't part of the village. It's still very much related to the march, but it is not. And I have no idea what it's supposed to represent. It's a fun little idea musically. There definitely needed to be some change there, at least as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a huge fan of repetition. I don't know if this was it though, especially not from a thematic angle, but it could also be that they are looking at this a completely different way than I am. The village music in the latter 25-30% of this track just continues to do what it's already done. We have swells and we have flattenings out, and swells and flattenings out. And it's exactly what we heard in the middle again. I just, let me flip this a little bit. I mentioned one of my favorite things about Explosions in the Sky is their ability to craft emotion in their music and to have these wild, extremely emotional peaks near the end of their song. That despite not being a big fan of post rock, I do enjoy everything they've been tossed my way, at least on an artistic level. They tend to impact me pretty heavily. This did not. And I've been going through my head wondering if I should even bring this up at all, because I've been trying to figure out why. What is the missing link in this track that hasn't been in their other tracks that I've heard? What is it about this one where the ending doesn't quite hit? And I really don't know. There is a peak towards the end, the loudest part of the song. It has all of the layers in it. The snare is not only just doing its traditional marching idea, but we have these odd syncopated accents around it and within it as well. This should be a powerful moment, especially given the story of a small town with no combat training, learning how to attack guerrilla style to reclaim their freedom that they never thought they would have to fight for. That's a powerful story. It never quite clicks musically for me, though. And the song just sort of petering out doesn't help me either. Apparently, the novel just ends with the mayor saying that I'm already dead, you can kill me, my people aren't going to stop fighting, and that's it. It implies an endlessness to it, or at least a perpetuation of the combat and violence that is going on. The ending of the song did not. It felt like the village got defeated. It just sort of faded out into nothingness. And through all this, I'm having such a difficult time pairing any of this to the source material. And it makes me wonder how closely tied. Maybe I'm even looking too close. Maybe it was influenced by the first paragraph of the book. Maybe it's not trying to do the entire novel. I don't know. But what I do know is I understood a lot of the references in the first half of the song. Or at least I made connective ties to the story and the themes of it. I couldn't do that with the latter half. And there was actually a part where I said to myself, I think I might have even said out loud, I'm getting a bit lost here. I don't know what's going on. I'm not making the connections anymore. And I thought to myself, well, let's feel this out then. What are they trying to tell me musically? What are the emotions at play here? This is what I would do if I didn't know that it was based on a story anyways. So it's not like this is new to me. I'm not a novice. I've been doing this for almost 3 full years now. And I had nothing. I had such a difficult time emotionally connecting with this track. And that is so out of character for me with explosions in the sky. I don't want to put that on them. I'm putting that on me. There's no lyrics. This is fully instrumental, so I don't know that I have anything else to say here. I really enjoyed following along with what I felt they were trying to tell me in the first half, but it felt like I started reading in a different language for the second half, which I don't know. This is where you guys come in. It's a bit of a odd reaction where I can't explain it to you. I can explain what I understood, but I didn't get it all. Let me know if you have any insight into this. Maybe there is an explanation you have, a theory you have, your own reading of the music, or maybe you have a link to an interview with Explosions in the Sky and they can tell me what their intentions were. I'm curious. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. You can also comment about anything else as usual, whether you enjoyed it or not. If you just have things you want to add on to what I said or anything like that, go ahead and let me know. Above the comment section is a description box, and there is a link for Linktree. It'll take you to this menu right here. Has links for everything related to the channel. You can support the channel through Patreon or picking up some merch or a variety of other ways. And you can also find the social networks that exist around the channel, such as Twitter and Discord. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell, I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. Alright, so that wraps this one up. We have a special selection coming up. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, with some more music to check out. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.